YouTube comments from a video titled, "It's not just you. Everyone hates Starbucks now."
At the Mr. Bucifus wrote,
This is the arc that the C-suites never understand. Building something great that people love and then turning around and trying to extract as much profit as possible never works. Working with executives and marketing people over the years have noticed the same thing everywhere. At the point where there is some success and a trend toward more revenue or profit, they disconnect from reality and only focus on the numbers. The companies incentivize only the increase in revenue and profit. Human beings become merely numbers in a spreadsheet, abstract and devoid of all that makes them human. Aggregate behavior and average sentiment are all that is left of their humanity in the eyes of shareholders. And whether it's MCDs or Starbucks or the artisanal burger place down the way, the one thing that brings people in the door is value, not price, not quality, but value. And value is a complex, multidimensional quantity that is intimately dependent on many emotional factors, many cultural factors, many human factors that are often at odds with extracting as much profit as possible and not very elegant or sexy for PowerPoint decks at board meetings.
at Megaside 84 wrote,
I'd say when it comes to a cup of coffee, one could find better and cheaper offerings at MC Donald's, Burger King, Circle K, and various mom and pop outlets. Competition has increased. Customers have better choices.
at Curtis Sexton 3801 wrote,
Listen, Starbucks closing is a good thing. It's time we stop spending all of our money on corporate junk. Instead, I'll go to the coffee shop that's owned by that young couple on the corner and get my coffee for half the price and not deal with the Karens.
as Shadow Papito wrote,
Break. Being from the good old USA, your accent is extra wild and after a few min painful. Keep making good content. I will just have to slide off into obscurity.
at Mitch70 wrote,
I used to be a regular at Starbucks. My loyalty program often gave me free drinks, and I was using the drive-thru even before COVID. Now their points/app program is less, and I'm not getting the same benefits I used to. It's disappointing, and I don't go there regularly anymore. Also, their reputation is horrible. It's not fun.
at Christine Sims Official wrote,
People will always revert back to more relaxing ways. The hassle and bustle only lasts so long. LOL. People deep down need and crave human connection and moments to relax. I think the content we consume will probably revert back to how it was in the vlogging days of YouTube. Everyone is so fake these days and trying to come off a certain way or have some gimmick to gain attention. I think we will start wanting that more authentic human connection feeling content. Just like how people with Starbucks love the relaxing side to their locations, to then suddenly always needing to be on the go, and then later craving that relaxing environment ritual again.
at Hidden Ducks wrote,
I tried Starbucks again after a few months on a break. I had 3 drinks over the past week, all different, and I realized all 3 drinks tasted exactly the same. A caramel frap, a pumpkin latte, and one of the new vanilla protein latte. I literally couldn't taste the different outside of really minor notes. They all tasted like generic melted ice cream over ice. I was never a super fan, but I'm surprised at how utterly boring their menu has gotten. Edit. I do still like the Reserve Store menu. It's pretty awesome.
at Nayslayer 768 wrote,
Design has played a big part. They followed the Chipotle model like everyone else. Minimal investment in interior design and building structure. Lousy for dining in. Great for resale, value, and upkeep. But now with fast food prices as expensive as sit-down restaurants, people are just eating at those or making their own food. Cozy has become costly.
At Kelly Marina 7933 wrote,
What did they expect to happen? The prices have always been outrageously high, and there's little to no benefit for the customer using their rewards program. Not to mention the ties to genocide. Who wants to spend upwards of $500 for one free drink? And a big chunk of that $500 goes towards funding a genocide? Yet no one's buying it anymore. Surprise, surprise.
At Hamilton Cox 7651 wrote,
The story of the Starbucks CEO wanting to copy the Italian model always inspires cognitive dissonance in me. A place to gather with your friends to sip coffee and chat? Has this guy ever been to a Starbucks? It's a long line of people waiting to order and a scrum of people waiting endlessly for their overly complicated beverages while anxiously checking their watches because they need to be somewhere else. And the quality and variety of their food has been continually declining. I used to love their cranberry orange scones and their Tazo tea, or their raspberry lemon yogurt, all gone. The tea they serve now is swill, barely discernible from tap water.
At Jamanavista Jugo 3456 wrote,
I stopped going to Starbucks because other coffee places offer better coffee and yummier, healthier food for less money. The only possible advantage Starbucks here in Germany has over some other coffee shops is that it allows people to sit with their laptops and use the Wi-Fi for as long as they wish and might stay open an hour or two later. But if you ask around, you can often find another coffee shop in the area that does that too. Starbucks pioneered a certain model but failed to stay ahead of the competition.
Joey G3K wrote,
Good way to destroy your oral health and general health is by visiting Starbucks daily. And you are paying premium for them to do that for watered-down sugar products. There is literally nothing to be gained from Starbucks.
At Alistair Blue 5523 wrote,
1150 individualism is not about isolation, it's about prioritizing individual rights over group rights. Groups are often irrelevant and rarely act as a unified whole. Ultimately, a healthy community life matters because it benefits individuals, not because the group has intrinsic authority. By contrast, collectivism often means sacrificing the rights and well-being of certain individuals in the name of the greater good. Historically, bigotry and tribalism are some of the oldest and harshest expressions of collectivism. Modern individualism, on the other hand, is rooted in the principle of judging people by the content of their character rather than by their membership in a group.
At Yuppers 1 wrote,
We have two economies now. The top 20% and the bottom 80%. Our economic trajectories are very different, and Starbucks needs to make a choice on who to serve.
At Robert T. wrote,
It was free Wi-Fi that drove me away. People would use the place as their own personal office space. It's not all bad. I bought an espresso machine and eventually began to roast my own coffee beans. I have better coffee than Starbucks.
At Technojunkie 123 wrote,
Years ago, the nearest Starbucks to me had a small mom and pop coffee shop open up right across the street. I was terrified for them because this Starbucks had been around for ages, was open later, and was super popular. Today, that Starbucks is nearly always empty, and the mom and pop shop is thriving with customers, and it feels like a real part of the neighborhood community. Makes me so happy to see my community support a local business that has way better drinks than Starbucks.
At Jones 1956 wrote,
My favorite coffee is Starbucks Dark French Roast. It's wonderful. I do buy the whole bean and make it at home. I have no problem eating in Starbucks. I don't understand what the big deal is.
At Switch 1184 wrote,
I was happy that they are struggling, though it was BC/boycott. Yay. Turns out it was due to the bad economy and the middle class getting poorer.
Because 7 wrote,
I have literally never had a coffee from an independent cafe. Even places I stop in the middle of nowhere in northern Ontario while road tripping that wasn't better than Starbucks. I used to go there a lot since I'm lactose intolerant, and they had non-dairy milk before a lot of other places did. But I'm at the point where I don't think they could pay me to drink one of those nasty sugary drinks. They're so sweet, I still remember the feeling of them drying out my mouth as I drank them. Just gross.
At X0 Stasis 72 wrote,
I replaced Starbucks with making my own espresso drinks at home with a cheap espresso machine, mid-tier grinder, and eventually, an automatic coffee bean roaster. Even if you're not good at operating an espresso machine, it only takes a few disappointing drinks to teach yourself how to make something already better than what Starbucks makes, especially when you don't have to learn how to interpret and adapt customers' custom orders into an actual drinks. When you just change one variable at a time, you can immediately know what works and what doesn't.
at Drandon Lemons 7190 wrote,
I can literally get a better coffee at 7-Elevens. Why would I spend $7 plus on a bad product? And that's before you even touch the union busting and Israel of it all.
a Squatch Piney wrote,
Fuck their ex-CEO Schultz. MF wanted to signal progressive values for PR, but was a filthy union buster. He couldn't let employees have their deserved share of the profits because he was stealing them to run for president.
at Bonanza Jalibian 741 wrote,
So my neighborhood in Seattle has, no joke, 4 Starbucks locations within walking distance of our apartment. 2 are kiosks inside grocery stores. 1 is a drive-through with a walk-up window. And 1 is a beautiful, cozy, spacious cafe in a historic building on a busy street, regularly full of people hanging out or working on laptops. Guess which one they chose to close?
at Disney Take Shigetics 7463 wrote,
The devil oops the left don't drink Starbucks coffee. They just talk about drinking Starbucks coffee. That's Starbucks' main problem, targeting the gay oops the woke as their main customers. Huh. Hilarious.
at Little Bull 196 wrote,
I ran into a Starbucks for some water during a run and was turned away. Gas station nearby gave me some water. They still have my business. Starbucks does not.
at 7003 ABC wrote,
Starbucks now V's. Worse tasting with offensive enshittification of their food and drinks. Worse seating and Wi-Fi. Worse store atmosphere. Worse customer service. Worse reward system. Weird vibes with all their paraphernalia for sale that just tried to turn customers into walking brand adverts. Worse drive-throughs. Worse political associations. And worse marketing and associations in people's minds now as basically fast food coffee that is inexplicably way more expensive than fast food should be. It's a really good example of enshittification basically. It's the same to me how people are choosing to get better burgers and sandwiches from local places over MC Donald's or Wendy's now that the prices are the same. They killed what made them successful and hoped to not just coast, but to grow solely on nostalgia.
at official_Wistanity wrote,
It's not just the absurd prices and menial amount you get anymore for me, really. The last few times I went to Starbucks, the drinks themselves tasted so artificial, like actual chemicals I was ingesting. Never coming back again.
at Wandering Waylander 2018 wrote,
I always hated Starbucks from the get-go. I can count how many times I've been to one on a single hand. Glad to see the masses finally joining me in my distaste.
at Jeff Spencer 6974 wrote,
When the brutalist designed Starbucks opened in the trashy little ghetto town down the road 8 months ago, I gave it a year before it shut down. I was over-optimistic by 4 months, but I'm damn sure enjoying the schadenfreude.
at Snail Art 14 wrote,
I was a barista at a competing store back in 2015 to 2017. I could get a nice fancy latte for like $4 back then. Now it's like almost $8 for the same drinks. I can just go make a better cup of coffee or latte at home.
Estambagi wrote,
Our family stopped using them in 2008. Unions are terrible. DEI is unfair to the general public. Contributions to the big, liberal institutions and political parties to keep prices jacked. They just suck.
Pixelated Void wrote,
If I wanted a third place, we have fair trade coffee places here. We have small cafes that are small business. Starbucks charges a lot and then side-eyes you for wanting to sit down and enjoy anything.
At 77 Horses wrote,
I am so glad that Starbucks is dying. It is a corporation whose sole purpose is making a profit and does so by firing old people, firing people who support Palestine, and firing people who want basic labor rights. Oh, and of course, exploiting people in the global south, including children, who are paid so little so that the coffee can remain cheap. There are so many independent cafes and ethical coffee roasters that it's truly unconscionable to go to Starbucks now. Firing people for being against genocide should be unacceptable.
Kevner wrote,
Corporate greed is destroying everything. Everybody is raising their prices without raising their wages. So nobody has disposable income to even buy all these goods and services. We all buy the essentials and whatever cheap options for recreation there are. That's it. The problem is greed. It's not enough for the rich to make a profit. They want to break records every quarter. They want to squeeze every last dime they can get out of the economy and hoard it all, give nothing back. Until that ends, the system will continue its slow collapse. Since it's not likely to end anytime soon, capitalism is doomed.
At White Rose 7055 wrote,
I love coffee but hate the cost and the attitude of the employees. Like so many others, I make much better coffee at home. Bye Starbucks. Can't say I'll miss ya.
At Garrett Busey 144 wrote,
I stopped going 3 years ago. I've saved thousands. I actually just bought $700 espresso machine cause I've saved so much that I figured I'd upgrade my home setup.
At Becunning wrote,
Last time I went and I bought a hot grande hazelnut flat white plus brief, and it cost over $7. My brain tells me it should cost $4.
At JNB 756 wrote,
Overexpanded big time. We have a Starbucks in our local supermarket and a full-size store literally across the street. Another one in a Target a half-mile away, and another kiosk-style drive-through across the street from that. I bet there are at least 2 or 3 I am missing within a 2-mile radius.
The Pink Glitter Fleck wrote,
I would rather get a cup of coffee from a gas station. It basically tastes the same and is much cheaper. Starbucks hasn't been good for at least a decade.
At Mesmerizer Frigaria wrote,
Because they use pretty bad quality coffee and they have insanely unhealthy, expensive, sugary drinks. There are way better options. Because of Starbucks and all their poor political decisions. Also because there is a social shift. Could be the economical global crisis. I think there are multiple reasons why this is happening. American fast food chains / restaurants / supermarkets are taking a big hit. People outside of America are boycotting American enterprises because of the Orange Man and his foolish policies.
KT Speedruns wrote,
Unlike a lot of people, I never went to Starbucks for coffee. I went for a fun drink. When I was a kid, I was introduced to it with hot chocolate. Later the strawberries and cream drink. Then much later caramel frap. I didn't know the frap was coffee. It was just tasty. But it never turned into an everyday thing. Going out every day in my family was absolutely unheard of, even if it was just for coffee. And as bad as Starbucks has become, the local mom and pop places that pop up near me are absolutely worse. Menus that are restrictive and impossible to understand, prices that are worse, and terrible wait times despite being the only ones in the shop. So yeah, it sucks. My wife and I got a coffee machine that also does fraps, and our Starbucks trips went from 1 to 2 times a month to whenever someone else is offering. And that's not often, because Starbucks is expensive. I could take my family to a restaurant and feed us with food and drink for around $30. When we're treated to Starbucks, it's also close to $30, even thought it's just drinks, and my toddler will be having the drink he already has. A place that is focused on serving drinks shouldn't cost nearly the same as somewhere offering food and drinks. At this point, I agree that Starbucks has become more like MC Donald's. Both of them are riding off their customer base, being addicted or dependent, or simply ignorant of any other options on where they can go. They are propped up by nostalgia. Why the hell are people begging MC Donald's for snack wraps when other places have similar and better options, usually at better prices? Similarly, why would I go to Starbucks for a simple coffee when I could go to 7-Eleven or a gas station for coffee that I make and customize myself for less than half the price?
At Raison Lychee wrote,
I wonder how that'll work for business that share building space with Starbucks. In Ontario, the Indigo bookstore chains typically have a Starbucks attached where you can walk through the bookstore directly to the Starbucks.
At Goliath Jerfishes wrote,
The Luckin coffee in NYC is just as expensive as Starbucks, if not more. I see that prices for coffee. Nothing is under $5 and closer to $7. Correction, at least their Americano is $4.
At DG 1476 wrote,
During the pandemic, I got a home espresso machine. So that is how I'm making most of my lattes and such now. It's practically paid for itself as it is significantly cheaper. So now I pretty much only go to the fancy independent shops as a treat and make everything else myself.
At Terry Plays 1726 wrote,
In the past, I defended Starbucks for their coffee quality. It was not the best, but a solid option if you did not want to take a gamble. Now they don't use real espresso machines anymore and the taste is subpar.
At BXR 12 wrote,
You nailed it right at the end. The only time I've been to a Starbucks in the last 10 years is at an airport. I never seek it out.
At Emptyfish 8992 wrote,
People spend money at that store, and they don't want most of it going to greedy executives. A cup of coffee costs nothing, and if you tell me it costs $24, I know you made up the price.
At Brass Snacks 8413 wrote,
Union busting Zios who made extremely mid coffee. It's a step above Tim Hortons in that I might grab it on a road trip or an airport if I have no other options.
At Willow T 442 wrote,
I like going to Starbucks when I felt lonely after my divorce. I just wanted to be around other people. Then the Starbucks indoors kept on getting less comfortable. The United States really needs third places to go.
At Druho 7545 wrote,
They mainly sell Pike Blend medium roast, which really isn't that good. If they just sold a better blend, they'd recapture the lost business. They sometimes put out other blends which can be much better. Most of the time, they only have this Pike's Roast blend, which is icky at best. But I had occasion to sometimes get a different exotic blend which I would then seek out. Change you common blend dummies.
At Jula Kazara 482 wrote,
When I was a pupil, I would sit in Starbucks cafes once every couple of months or so. as a rare indulgence, spending some change I had saved up on granola and a cup of tea. It used to be cool and cozy. Now it's cold and unwelcoming. Edit. I visited Copenhagen a few months back, and they have a chain simply called Coffee House that evokes the coziness I miss from Starbucks.
At A Pink 176 wrote,
516 for me and my family. Pandemic lockdowns has made us more likely to support local businesses over chain brand as an effort to save them from the impacts of lockdown. I shopped my local coffee shop during COVID as a community effort, and now, years later, that's my default coffee shop. I know the people and I love the familiar atmosphere. Unless I'm traveling or in a rush, I'm not going to go to Starbucks.
At Citizen of Corona 8783 wrote,
First time I heard of Starbucks was when they had one inside my local Barnes and Noble. I used to think since it was inside a bookstore, it was in reference to Captain Ahab's first officer Emmer Starbuck in Moby Dick. Now they're pretty much everywhere, but they pretty much have started collapsing post-pandemic. Starbucks used to be a good place to go and meet people, but now it's where dumb parents take their feral kids and try to throw an iPad in front of them, but instead they disrupt other patrons running around the store screaming. If you do anything even as much as get up and move far away, the parents get offended.
At Somnus Lucas Selim wrote,
It's downscaling, not going bankrupt. You forget the rest of the world still exists. These people are not individualistic, and in a lot of places, like my country, Starbucks is considered by the middle class to be a fancy place to hang out. Hardly a failing business when you still have the rest of the world to fall back on for profits when your country of origin is disinterested. I don't like these companies either, but it's funny to see the skewed perception.
At Wayne Showalter wrote,
15 years ago, a Starbucks came to my town. My 2 high school kids wanted to check it out. They ordered their fancy coffees, and I ordered a medium plain coffee. The bill's total was ridiculous. What rankled me was the price for my plain coffee. $5 comes to mind. Even if it was $3 hazy recollection, I still was put off by the price. Why? Because even with inflation now, I can make a larger cup of coffee at home for under 50 cents. Yes, I never went back to my or any neighborhood Starbucks where the profit bucks shine like stars in the night sky.
J. T2310 wrote,
Restaurants don't want to be a third space anymore. That requires larger space and insurance and cleaning. I think the pandemic proved that in real number dollar now MC Donald's near my house and Costco has fewer tables and standing desk style tables. One place even has a sign that says you can only stay for 30 minutes.
J. T2310 wrote,
I wonder how many people know their city by which Starbucks they are close to. Lol, cultural shift ahead. That was not in my bingo card for this year. I hope they continue to supply B stores with coffee beans for home. Things sound uncertain.
J. T2310 wrote,
New subscriber. Great report. My personal Starbucks closed this Thursday. Actually, I loved to be annoyed at how expensive it was and how its line was in the way of the only exit to the mall, but it was a landmark to give directions. Now that corner is hard to describe. Lol, maybe they can leave the sign.
At Normal Winter Fox wrote,
I stopped drinking Starbucks when I joined the boycott because of their support in the Israel-Palestinian war. In hindsight, it helped me because 1. I lost weight 2. Saved some money. Plus it tastes gross now. I went back recently after 2 years. Got a frap. It was you. I guess my body is detoxed from it.
At Nezalearns wrote,
I live in a small town in Alabama, and I knew it was bad when they announced a new Starbucks and all the comments were disappointed.
Astrock 3611 wrote,
In South Africa, there's something called Seattle Coffee Company. and it basically owns Starbucks Market. Starbucks tried expanding into SA, but the coffee was far too expensive.
At Mike_Genesis wrote,
When prices went up, I bought a Profitec Pro 600 espresso machine and Breville grind control coffee maker and never looked back. So that CEO who thinks people are skipping a meal doesn't realize how replaceable Starbucks is, take nor that his customers can do math. Just like yourself, I only go to Starbucks now if I'm at the airport.
At Happy Hamburger, N. Forrest wrote,
You make your name on being a place to meet people or simply sit down for a while, and then act surprised when people stop coming as much when you switch to wanting everyone to GTFO as soon as possible. Yeah, no duh. You're not a cafe anymore. You're a Dunkin' Donuts that charges cafe prices. People used to be more okay with the higher prices because it also bought them a comfortable seat and a table to meet friends at, and you got rid of the seats. And because it's a Dunkin' now, everyone's leaving garbage everywhere, and you feel gross even coming in. Even ignoring the company's politics, it's no surprise. You can only rely on the branding based on how you used to operate for so long. Their competition is just too good these days.
At Greenhowl 157 wrote,
Starbucks just needs to scale back and focus on the coffee and make it affordable. Everything is so cold and corporate nowadays when it doesn't have to be.
At Thackrell Julia wrote,
It is so funny Starbucks in Europe is like this cool American thing, whereas in the US it is this cool European thing. In Austria, at least it always had the reputation of just being overpriced, because you have nice cafes to sit down and enjoy your coffee at every corner.
At Josh Fennell 2257 wrote,
I will quibble a bit with the idea that China's industrialization affects its coffee businesses. The Chinese economy seems more relevant and it is in a slump. Stagnant incomes translate to less patronage of expensive American coffee shops. That's one theory anyway.
At Decar 3 wrote,
This is a sign that the world is healing. Starbucks was a symbol of left-wing urban culture, their coffee and addiction, which was somehow socially acceptable. Now that the world is finally waking up to how toxic the left is, the store that was an overt representation of that ideology and lifestyle is failing. Thank goodness, it's about bloody time. Their coffee was always mediocre too. On the occasions I had it, I always questioned what on earth the fuss was about.
At Clinton McBride 7015 wrote,
I am surprised to hear that Starbucks was uperodly trying to feel invading and get you to sit down. The only times I've been in one, it's very stark and open and loud and smelly. Why would I want to spend time relaxing inside a coffee machinery?
At Luna_Soleil wrote,
For some reason, I'm surrounded by boutique coffee shops way more expensive than Starbucks. I get excited to see one now because I know I can get a good affordable cup of coffee.
Puffin Pass wrote,
Let's be honest here, Starbucks coffee tastes terrible and their drinks are mostly sugar. At one point, they were a good third space where people gathered regularly. Now they are stripped back interiors and uncomfortable while closing at 6 p.m. so that it is impossible to be a gathering place for anyone. Like you said, it is the MC Donald's of coffee and not even very good at that.
And her Marcus Wolf wrote,
New subscriber here. You do very good videos. Informative, smooth delivery, and you pick interesting topics. While Starbucks might have been a third place in some areas, it also was a place where traveling business folks could meet and prep for meetings or debrief after. A big mistake was publicly taking political stances that immediately alienated large segments of the population, a danger any company entering political discussion faces. A lot of independent business owners, especially tech workers, could get out of the home and jump on a Starbucks wireless network to get some focus time with their latte. Starbucks benefited from many different constituencies that they slowly alienated. Moms with children, nomadic, or traveling business people. Local crowds started to feel edged out in urban areas when these third places became magnets for homeless and panhandlers, or when the baristas started writing political fare on the side of cups. Finally, your cultural shift and pricing points highlighted the death knell of Starbucks. In the 90s and early 2000s, I purchased a high-end latte that was around $4. I recently made a rare stop in a Starbucks, and that same drink was almost $9. No thanks. I'll grind and press my own at home without the drama.
In 1980, Rolquin wrote,
I don't know how the overall market is doing in Japan, but I've definitely noticed a drop in tourists asking for Starbucks specifically. It used to be that when overseas tourists would visit, when they wanted coffee, they specifically asked for Starbucks and would also often ask if there was a cute or special one nearby, as Starbucks gained some notoriety in Japan for building their stores in unique-looking shops. I would often have to sell the idea of independent cafes hard to convince people to spend locally. However, since the end of the pandemic and the reopening of borders, most visitors now ask for independent cafes of their own volition, or they simply ask for a good place to get coffee and are readily impressed to hear of a mom and pop shop nearby. Now, if they would just stop using Uber and order a proper taxi.
And Mercan wrote,
Does middle class in the US mean the same as it does in other countries, or does it refer to what is known as the working class in other countries?
At SF Transit wrote,
Oh no, the white women won't be able to get their $8 morning coffee milkshake, but will have to go buy actual coffee from an actual coffee shop for $5. How terrible.
And Mr. Devil's Babe wrote,
I had no inkling whatsoever that Starbucks was on the decline. I live in Tokyo, and they have stores absolutely everywhere, all packed all the time. They come out with a new Frappuccino flavor every month, usually themed to the season, and I often see those sold out.
At Aiden 1488 wrote,
America, build an economy dependent on the success of the middle class, where small business can grow and prosper. Small business grow into massive corporations. Corporate greediness and lack of foresight chalks middle class into sheer extinction. Middle class no longer has the disposable income that made mega corporations into mega corporations. Whole economical model starts to collapse. Mega corporations surprised Pikachu face as they lose customers and money.
At Laziestra wrote,
According to a quick Google search, 59 of the stores closing were unionized. I wonder how many of the other closed stores were trying to unionize as well.
At Cordelia Wagner 1999 wrote,
I just want a place with free Wi-Fi and clean toilets. I don't care about the DEI barista and Thatham's shenanigans. I go to the Starbucks on my university campus because I get free refills for my green tea and can sit in peace hidden in a corner.
At Foreign Particle 1320 wrote,
I just want a semi-comfortable place to sit and drink my coffee and overpriced pastry. As inferior as Starbucks' coffee always has been, I appreciated the consistency, speed, and formerly, the welcoming atmosphere. Those were its selling points to me, and still would be if they reverted to that business model.
At Jakasan 8892 wrote,
The problem is, why would people pay for wage slave coffee when a coffee establishment is an ideal owner-operator enterprise? I know this is something Americans do not seem to get, but the point is to liberate workers from exploitation, and it is going the other way with gigsploitation.
At Archigalis wrote,
I have 3 cafes I go to regularly. All are independent local businesses. They're all really nice, comfy third spaces. They have art from local artists on the walls. One has living houseplants growing everywhere. And one is a super artisan place, where the owner often works behind the counter and will talk anyone's ear off about coffee if given half a chance. And his cappuccinos are utterly divine. Best coffee I've ever tasted. And they all sell their coffee for half the price of the town's Starbucks. I can have a fancy artisan local experience for $5 a coffee. So why would I pay more for the bland, soulless, evil megacorp experience?
At Plu_Tony_ wrote,
Australia showed Starbucks the door 20 years ago. The handful of stores that returned in Australia are for the foreign tourist trade, as Australians don't drink shit coffee.
Krothoff de Horde wrote,
The only coffee of theirs I like is their grocery store checkout pre-chilled bottles. On a rare occasion. Their hot coffee is overpriced, burn trash. I use a cheap, small French press $15 with medium ground. Folgers or store brand Food Club seems like it's the same factory, equivalent. Why? I can drink it black, no sugar, and it tastes good. Even Dunk's tastes gross unless you add a gallon of cream and sugar.
At Thebertishindian1 wrote,
I was never a huge fan of their coffee, it was always weak. But when they focused on DEI, I made sure that I never spent a penny there.
At Rob Atkins wrote,
People are just struggling to get by. This is what happened after Reagan attacked unions in the 1980s. Well, because people keep voting for corporate tools like Trump, Bush, and Reagan. We now have to suffer the consequences of who people voted for. Yet the people still don't learn for some reason.
At Lyric wrote,
I don't eat out often, due to cost, but the once in a while I do, it's always at independent places. Real local business. Anything and everything that is corporate is boring and bland. Like the spreadsheets and formulas the corpos love so much.
At NW1317 wrote,
Oh no. The union busters aren't doing well? I'll keep drinking my local chains or what I made at home, sorry Starbucks. But your beans just give me anxiety.
At Ego Samori wrote,
I'm making this judgment without watching the video first. But seriously, why should we not hate Starbucks? They kill business of lovely little coffee shops just trying to scrape by.
At Dvillains26 wrote,
I pretty much only get Starbucks from places that are not Starbucks but serve their products. Especially Barnes & Noble, whose cafes are exactly the third place Starbucks fancies itself as, and the local B&N cafe within the store has all the business the Starbucks a block away used to have. B&N is a weird success story TBH, an exception in so many ways that has lucked out by both the advent of book talk and by drawing in people with literally no other third space option.
At MegGriffin4802 wrote,
Support local and independent coffee shops. I've never got the hype about Starbucks or any chain coffee place TBH. There's some amazing local coffee places, location dependent, where the beans are good, the pastries well made, and not Starbucks expensive.
At Vanislafago wrote,
Deserved. There are so many health violations. Dog owners bring in dogs and harass people with them. And if you're allergic, you're expected to just die for them.
At SRJ607 Abel wrote,
Starbucks is still popular in South Korea because of large amounts of discounts coupons. The Korean coffee culture is now over Starbucks. Starbucks is cheap coffee but sold expensive. Nowadays in Korea, you get much better coffee quality than Starbucks.
At MainCouch123 wrote,
Make worse food for more money, it's coffee. HOT water. Remove chairs police force refuses to actually police. Risk dealing with homeless people home, wonder why no one wants to bother.
At Donner of Life wrote,
Individualism, my bum circle. People don't do that anymore because we got drowned in work, debt, and social obligations, such as elder welfare, since many of them has their benefit taken away recently, on top of our own personal obligations. with this kind of crap. If they have any free time, people only want to just rest and treat myself a comfort food at home.
A Shockwave FPS Studios wrote,
I hate to say this, but at least I know I'm not the only one who's noticing this pattern. This isn't just a Starbucks issue, it's been happening with Burger King. Even Mariano's closed down some of its locations, including the place I live.
At Valadecos wrote,
I had feeling this company was going downhill when I had a chance to work for them. Enjoy making coffee, but the process is so automated and jammed with so many not coffee drinks. Felt less like place where you can enjoy the process and more like human robots or monkeys in suits pushing buttons for cash incentives. Sounds strange, but I loved working for a small coffee house where most things were made from scratch and you had to know how to work an espresso range. Cramped as hell, but honestly so of my more enjoyable time as working in service. Also, the customers were very, very different. Starbucks brought a lot of rude clients, while the small store had lots of pleasant folks.
At Steel Guitar 8587 wrote,
I'm not a coffee drinker, but I love tea, and the tea I make at home is so much better than Starbucks with just a modicum of effort. And it doesn't cost $7 lol.
A Pedestrian Pony wrote,
The problem Luckin is ultimately going to have is that their emphasis on cheap, customizable drinks means that most of their menu is kind of gross. If you haven't tried Luckin yet and you're used to local coffee shops and even Starbucks, you're going to be very, very underwhelmed by Luckin's quality. I gave them multiple shots and tried several drinks, and it's just not great. The main pro is how cheap it is, but I'm not often so desperate for a drink that I want something unpleasant just to save a buck.
At Lee J. Du wrote,
Someone's going to make $1 billion opening an actual Italian-style cafe bar across the U.S. Like a place that obviously serves good coffee, but also beer, wine, and snacks like sandwiches. And all of that in a place that doesn't feel like fast food mediocrity and instead feels like the kind of place you'd sit and work for hours or meet up with friends. Bonus points if instead of franchise bland similarity of atmosphere, they just manage the operations and let the partner that owns a given location determine everything else so each location has its own look and feel.
At Citizens United Needs to Stop wrote,
I have access to water and heat at home, so I make my own coffee. I used to use Starbucks beans, but since boycotting them, I've discovered 8 o'clock espresso beans, which I like much more.